Hi, welcome to the Total Clarity Podcast. I'm Jessie Hyatt.
And I'm Mike Varlet, and this is week 36 of our 52-week walk around New York City.
Yeah, and this week we're doing our final full week in Queens.
That's right. We've done 3 full months worth of Queens walks now. And this week, we are doing what we're calling a loose ends walk. We'll be doing this for all 3 of the boroughs we walk for 3 full months. And the goal is to just hit up some of the neighborhoods that, for whatever reason, in this particular instance, because Queens is such a big borough, there are some neighborhoods at the extreme corners that we didn't flesh out as much as we would have liked previously.
Right. Some of the neighborhoods closer to where we live, we've walked through a whole bunch of times, and a lot of the neighborhoods on the edges we just hadn't really explored that much. So, yeah, it was really fun. This week we've gone to Douglas Manor and Douglaston.
And Little Neck. And Springfield Gardens and Rochdale around the JFK area. And so throughout the podcast, you'll be seeing some video clips from these various neighborhoods while we're talking to our guest, and that is Paul Dibenedetto. He is president of the Bayside Historical Society and a fantastic guy, fantastic guest. It was lovely to have him on and to learn a little bit about his area of expertise, which is that upper northern eastern corner of Queens, which contains Bayside, obviously, as well as Douglas Manor and Douglaston and Little Neck.
Yeah, it was really fun to talk with Paul. We met him when we first went out to Fort Totten, I think in our first month in Queens. Or maybe it was in our second month in Queens.
It was our second chunk, I think, in November.
Yes, it was because it was one of our first themes that was the road to Fort Totten.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. And yeah, we had reached out to him because Bayside Historical Society is located in Fort Totten, and we wanted to learn about that space. He was really nice. We got along with him really well. He got us in past the gate to look at the Battery, which had been sort of shut down because of COVID. And we were really excited to have him back on the podcast to talk about the rest of that area in Queens.
Yeah, so we have a whole episode on Fort Totten that you can take a look at, and we'll provide a link. We also have a 360 video that you can take a look at for that week. And yeah, we focused primarily just across the Little Neck Bay to some of the other neighborhoods there. And also a little bit, well, I don't want to spoil too much. Let me be honest.
Don't spoil it.
Because we're going to get to his interview section in just a few minutes, doing something a little bit different. You know how we like to tweak each episode just a little bit. And it so happens that for longtime listeners of the Total Clarity podcast, it has been 5+ weeks. So that means we need to do a mileage report.
That's right. Yeah, because it's week 36. We need to tell everyone what place in the world we could have walked to each of the last 5 weeks.
That's right. So Jessie did the researching, the compilation of all our mileage to this point, as well as the locations we could have gone to.
Yeah.
How much magical travel was involved this time?
You'll find out.
All right. Sometimes we can only pretend if we walk as the bird flies. Other times we walk as the human walks.
The feet go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll find out soon. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're starting with week 31.
Yes.
That week, we would have walked 4,061 miles.
So it would have been our first week crossing the 4,000-mile threshold.
I mean, it was our first. That is how far we walked.
Yeah.
But where we could have walked to, as the feet go, Northway Village, Alaska.
Northway Village, Alaska. This is our second Alaskan location, right?
I do think that we went to Alaska, it might have even been week 30.
Okay.
Or week 29.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was week 29.
Okay.
Because I think week 30 we went to the center of the earth. I'm pretty sure.
We get around.
Yeah, and then we just came back out and went back to Alaska. And Northway Village is just on the western side of the border near Canada.
Okay.
Not too far up north into the state, just about a third or so. in that village, there are 84 people from a Native American community, which is spelled K''EHTTHIIGN. And I would try to pronounce that, but on the sheet, the page that I was reading about this, it said community name. It had that word. And then it said English pronunciation, none. Oh. So I figure I'm not going to try because...
Yeah, why not?
It's said that there's no pronunciation. So there's 84 people that live there. There had been more people that lived there much before, but it's a semi-nomadic community. And in the 1940s, there was a big flood of the river. So a lot of people left and moved on. But these 84 people, and well, I'm sure it's not the same 84 people, but some people stuck around. And just one more fun fact. In 1942, so shortly after the river flooded, the people who remained named the village Northway to honor the village chief, who was named Tieta, and he had adopted the name Northway from a riverboat captain that traveled through in the 1900s. And Chief Walter Northway was said to be 117 years old at the time of his death in 1993.
117. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. That's a strong diet of fish, I imagine. That's maybe one of the oldest people in the world.
Yeah.
So that's week 31. We could have gone there.
Northway
Village.
Yeah. All right.
Week 32.
Yeah.
4,192 miles.
Okay.
So it seems to me like this is the furthest we can possibly walk in any direction on our feet with Google Maps directions.
Okay.
Because this takes us almost just up to the edge of the Panama Canal.
Okay. Cool.
And how much do you know about Panama City and the Panama Canal?
I don't know. I mean, I know the Panama Canal spearheaded by Theodore Roosevelt.
I don't know is that true?
He was involved. Maybe spearheaded is generous. I don't know.
I feel like it might have been, I don't know. It was definitely some sort of trading and interest. But what I learned about when I was reading this is that Panama Viejo, which means Old Panama, was a Spanish city that was built in 1519, and it was burned down in 1671 because of these trade wars. And I guess this was before the Panama Canal was built, but I think there was still, I guess the canal was built because it was already a trade route.
Okay.
But it was tricky.
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm putting us both on blast here, proving how little we know about the Panama Canal. Anyway,
we should know better about the canal.
I feel like we should, but whatever.
I don't know.
Maybe we'll learn. What I learned this week is that it was burned down in 1671 by Henry Morgan, who was a famous privateer. Have you ever heard that term?
Yeah.
I had never heard it before. It's basically like a hired pirate.
Yeah, sure.
And this was during a time when England and Spain were fighting about trade, and they were attacking each other's ships. And this guy was hired by England to burn down Panama City. And then when the city rebuilt, they specifically built a wall around the city to protect from pirates.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's still there. It's like a UNESCO site, the old city.
Yeah.
So we could have walked, we could walk almost right up to that.
Right.
So,
well, if we had been doing that, we would probably know more about its history.
Definitely. That's definitely true. But it seems like that is the place where Google Maps, no matter where you try to go, it won't let you because I think you can't cross the canal. There's a big old bridge that goes over it, but there's no foot traffic.
Oh.
I assume.
Is it car traffic, I guess?
Seems that way. Huh. Didn't do that much research into it. Anyway, week 33.
Week 33.
4,323 miles.
Yeah.
This is now where we're going to start flying.
Okay.
And flying miles are very different than walking miles because the walking miles, it's actually like on the roads and such.
Yeah.
The flying miles is just a straight shot.
Yeah.
So we made it all the way to Peru.
Ooh.
In the air.
Where?
Well, I'm very excited about this one.
Here we go.
And it relates kind of to our project. We could fly 3,648 miles to Lima.
Yeah.
And then we can get off the plane and walk 660 miles to Ollantaytambo.
Okay.
And then we walk on the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, which I've
Oh.
always wanted to do. It's 26 miles.
Yeah.
You can't do it in, I know. It's like a 4-day trip though, because you know the elevation there is like insane.
Right.
So that adds up to 4,334 miles, and that week we walked 4,323.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So.
Wow, you gave us quite an itinerary.
I know.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, Machu Picchu.
Yeah, I think the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu has always sounded like a fun trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got to fit that one in.
Very good.
Week 34.
Yeah.
4,454 miles.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to a new continent.
Uh-oh, where are we going?
We're going to touch down in Africa for the first time.
Ooh.
We're going to Tunisia. We're going to Tunis, Tunisia.
Okay, great.
It's the capital city of Tunisia.
Yeah.
And Tunis comes from the Berber word for to lay down or encampment. And it's also sometimes associated with the goddess Tanith or Tunit, the chief deity of ancient Carthage and a goddess of war.
Wow. Cool. Have you always wanted to go to Tunisia?
So when I worked for a textile company, we imported textiles from all over the world, and one of the towels that we would bring in came from Tunisia, and they were very soft and really nice colors.
Yeah.
So probably since I was in college, I was like, maybe I should go look at towels in Tunisia.
Yeah.
But to be completely honest, I don't really know much about the country of Tunisia other than that one experience importing some towels for the person I worked for.
Have you ever had Tunisian food?
I think I have, but I wouldn't really be able to tell you what it is. I do think I've eaten at a Tunisian restaurant once, but I can't tell you.
I don't think I have, but.
It's in the Mediterranean kind of area.
Yeah.
Maybe a little east. I just looked at the map, but
yeah.
I think it's a little bit east.
We'll have to see if there's a Tunisian restaurant in New York we can go to.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I know what the type of food is.
Yeah.
But we'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Now that we're going to be going there last week.
Yeah. We got to.
Yeah. So the final place that we
Week 35.
Week 35, 4,585 miles.
We've crossed 4,500 miles.
That's true. So what we're going to do here, we're going to fly to Tivat, Montenegro, which is 4,545 miles. And then we're going to walk 43 miles to Lake Skader, or Skadar, or Skader. I'm not sure how to say that. Skader.
Okay.
It is the most visited national park in Montenegro.
Oh.
There's 5 national parks in Montenegro. Which
I see.
I was when I first read that, I was is it also the only national park? Because it's not a very big country.
Yeah.
But there's 5 national parks in Montenegro. And Lake Skader is the most visited. And the lake is 2/3 in Montenegro and 1/3 in Albania.
Oh.
Yeah. And what you can do there, hiking, kayaking, birding, fishing, swimming. There's 250 known bird species and 30 different fish. And most people fish for carp and eat that.
Nice.
I don't know if I've ever had carp.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I looked them up because I thought I knew which ones they were, and I was right. They're the ones with like the things, the little like burrs on their lips.
Yeah, they look like they have mustaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what they taste like.
Yeah.
So we went all over.
Wow. What great
in the last
research you
5
did
weeks.
this week.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. That's it. So if you like that segment, let us know, because we keep doing it.
We're gonna honestly.
We're gonna do it anyway.
I'd love to know if you like it.
But we like it.
Happy to know if you don't like it. If you don't, like, we're not gonna stop though, because I like it. I find it to be very fun.
Yeah.
Well, but like maybe we'll put like a fast forward option.
Yeah.
For those of you that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also just hit you can do that yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, we always aim to please.
Yes, and what we do hope you will really like is our next guest, Paul Dibenedetto.
Yeah, let's go talk to Paul. Thank you, Paul, so much for joining us or having us here today.
Happy to have you.
Yeah.
Happy to have you back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so we're at the Bayside Historical Society, and would you tell us a little bit about what that is and where we are and what this building is?
Yeah, the building.
We're
Tell us a
sitting
little bit
in?
about this space that we're in, which is a fantastic exterior and an amazing interior as well.
It's both. Today we're in what's known as the Officers Club. It was built in the 1870s through the 1880s by the U.S. Army. It originally was built, we're in Fort Totten in Bayside, Queens. It was originally built by the Army to house the Army Corps of Engineers, their library and their offices.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was used as such, and it was called the Officers Club because it was a place, it was their library and where some of their offices were, but it was also a place where officers could come and have their events, their soirees, their weddings, whatever it may be. So that's that larger floor downstairs. It was used for that for a number of years, and then I think in the early 1900s, they left. They moved to another location, but the building remained. It was still used by the Army. The whole base was used by the Army. And then we later on acquired it. It's a bit of a long story, but I can tell it to you.
Sure, yeah, we're all ears.
There was a state senator, his name was Frank Padovan. He passed away a few years ago. He was state senator for a very long time, I believe 38 years, if not 40, close to 40 years. Wow. He was state senator. And he was great. He really was an advocate for neighborhoods and for people who lived here. And being in a city because it is New York City, even though it doesn't feel like it here, it's still New York City. And change and comes quickly, sometimes in cities, and big projects. And he was the kind of guy who advocated for the folks who lived here, because folks who live here, I'll tell you my story too, but folks who live here tend to work in the city, or in Brooklyn. And but they live here because it's a suburban part of New York.
Right.
And New York City I live in a house in Bayside. But New York City only has, I think, approximately 15% single-family housing. So it's mostly a place that has, multifamily to very large apartment buildings and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so Frank was the kind of guy, once again, who would advocate for this community to try and keep it a suburban community. And he did it for a long time. But he was also in the Army, mm-hmm. and he was an engineer. So he was stationed here, I believe, in the 70s, and the building fell into disrepair. He wasn't stationed, here in this building, but he was stationed somewhere on the base here. Mm-hmm. And so he had a passion for Fort Totten, for seeing it preserved, and for saving this building. So he worked with the Historic Society to have it landmarked, which did happen, and in 1976, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
one of the cool things I remember you telling us back when we met was it November, right?
I think so.
We met for the first time in November when we did our Fort Totten walk, that the building itself looks like the Army Corps of Engineers logo, right?
yes, that's true.
Yeah, and I guess it had to have been that the logo already, are there other buildings that are made in that way to mimic that?
I think there's another building like this somewhere in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So it's a really special building, and it looks just like if you see the Army uniform. In fact, we could look at it. I don't know if you've seen it yet. We could look at Senator Padovan's uniform.
Oh, cool.
That he wore when he was here in Fort Totten. We have it downstairs.
So maybe we can catch some
amazing.
video of that so people can check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has that little castle badge.
Yeah.
And it looks just like the building.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the building, I mean, it has a ballroom area on the second floor. You guys host events here, correct?
Yes. Yeah. We have our art show. We have our general meeting in there. We have musical performances, a jazz brunch. Pre-COVID, of course.
Right.
Although some of that stuff we've done virtually. In fact, this weekend we're recording a jazz band. It's going to be rebroadcast later, but I'm going to record it in the ballroom.
Nice.
And other events. So also people have weddings here. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful place to be married.
Yeah.
It really is just like the perfect setting for anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you were saying earlier, before we got on camera, which I think we should talk about it a little bit, the art show you've transitioned into doing some things virtually now.
That's right. Yes, we had. This is our 20th year of having an art show.
Wow.
It's an entirely local community art show. So it's artists who live, who either live or work in Bayside or the immediate neighborhoods: Whitestone, Douglaston, Little Neck, Fresh Meadows. So and every year it blows me away because well, I see the stuff before because I'm helping to set up the exhibit, but you see these paintings and these sculptures and these people are just living out there,
Yeah.
in the community,
Right.
and you always you think of an art community as what Soho used to be or Williamsburg or other neighborhoods in New York City, and they're out here too in Bayside. There's maybe less of them, but they're just living. We don't have a centralized art community here, so they're out there, and we get to put their stuff up, and people come down and pack out that room, pre-COVID again.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have live music, and we have wine and cheese, and we have a Neil Slaughter, who is an art professor and critic from CW Post. He comes every year and does incredible work. He examines every single painting. We create prizes for different categories: photography, paint, whatever. And the whole event is really nice. So, of course, this year we said we're not going to stop. We're going to still do it. So we moved it online, and it's been a huge success online. We have well over 2,000 hits the first day.
Wow.
And within a week, we had 7,000 hits on it. And normally we get 300 people who come to the show on the weekend, and then we leave it up for the next 3 weeks in the ballroom, and then people will come, 2 or 3, 10 a day will come and look, and that's it. So going forward, hopefully we'll go back to that, but we're going to keep it online too because the outreach is so good. And I should mention one more thing.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just local artists, it's also we partner with Bayside High School. They have a digital art program.
Yeah.
And so the kids, kids from Bayside High School from that digital art program, their teachers there will either pick the best ones or all of them. I'm not really sure how they choose, and those also get shown. And,
cool.
And they do great. Again, sometimes you just can't believe the quality. And all this stuff is on our website, baysidehistorical.org, and it's currently there right now. I'm not sure when this gets broadcast.
Yeah.
But it should be there. It'll probably be on the page in some form even after the show over.
Yeah.
And you can look at it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to look at it myself. I think the point you made about it all being local artists is actually really exciting to me too, being someone that considers myself an artist as well,
Yes.
and always having this idea that like I have to live close to the city, or I have to be like in Brooklyn where the art, like this idea that, you know, you could live, we are still very close to the city in Bayside, but it is further out, it is a little more suburban, and that there could be a community of artists anywhere.
That's right.
And that there's really great talent, like it's in all of us too, to some degree,
is,
like
yeah.
humans can make stuff.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to note too, from the perspective of this year that we've been going through, and as it goes into year 2, how
Yes.
there are these things that are going to be so transformational about this experience in a positive way, or just, you know, I don't know if the Bayside Historical Society would have necessarily thought that online would be the way to go to continue to grow,
Yeah.
but it looks like now that maybe that's an avenue moving forward. And how many instances like that are happening in the city, in the country, in the world? You know?
Right.
It's pretty remarkable.
No, it's definitely, you know, something like this, you know, a pandemic comes, what, every 100 years or so, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it is, you said it perfectly, it is really a transformational thing. And like any other kind of change like that's so catastrophic, as insignificant, you want to make the best of it.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do here, you know, another thing that we've done is we have this education program. It's a pretty cool program. It's for elementary school kids, and it's called Grandmother's Trunk, because we have a lot of archives. You know, being that Bayside was settled, well, the Montenegro people lived here prior, and then when the Europeans came in the late 1600s, so there's a bunch of stuff that's accumulated here, and you know, in our archive, and so Grandmother's Trunk, this elementary school program. It involves our teachers coming, and they wear period costumes from 1905, and then the kids will come in, from the bus pulls up, they come in and they're waiting outside, and they have these outfits on. The kids are looking at them, you know, like, and then they show them, you know, the way that you know, irons were used in the past. You know, you heat them up and put them over clothes, and it's a really fun, and they get to play this game with the sticks and the hoops where they push them
Oh
along.
yeah. What is that called? Stick and hoop.
Yeah,
It might
I
be.
wish I could tell you. You know,
Right,
I'm
right.
embarrassing my people
No,
right
no,
now by not knowing
we'll
the
look
names.
it up.
But yeah, so they do that. They do that. If it's a nice day, they'll do it outside, or they do it in
Right.
the ballroom, and it's a great program. So again, we're stuck in this situation, so we started filming it, and
Yeah.
all of our teachers did it.
Oh, cool.
And they did a great job, and it's
Amazing.
also available online. So yeah, we're doing whatever we can to continue, because we don't want to shirk our responsibility and our mission. You know, so
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you have this whole archive here too. We got to see on our way in something new that's being added to the archive, which is really exciting.
right.
Which maybe you could tell us a little bit more about. And then I also am curious, because this special thing that I'm not mentioning, we didn't want to touch it, of course. And I am curious how you, just in general, deal with these really old
Right.
items. I know I've been to the archive area and the conservation area at the Met and seen like all the gloves and all these
yeah.
things. And I'm just curious how you handle old items here.
I could tell you, yes. Well, I don't handle them in the first place.
Step 1, don't give them to me.
Don't give them to me. No, we have a full-time archivist here, Harvey. He's great. He's a Queens College graduate. He lives locally too, and he's a professional. You know, he has a degree in whatever it's called, as archivist degree, and he's great. He takes the items. He puts his gloves on and whatever other materials he needs to wear to make sure it's safe, and he's allowed to touch the items, and depending on their, you know, how delicate they are, and he'll go through them, and he'll put them into the archive, and you know, whatever it is that they do, he does it really well for us, and we've had other archivists over the years, and So stuff accumulates over time. Some of it's like, what do you accept and not accept? Because people will send you newspapers, and newspapers are great, but they don't have so sometimes it's like, what do we accept and not accept, and because what's of value to the archive, and what's, so those are choices that he'll make as well. But so it's good, because the more that we can put together, the better picture we can give to the future of what life was like before us and during, and
Right.
And so, you go on.
Oh, and I was just gonna that the stuff that we saw earlier today when we first walked in was a very old Bible.
Yeah.
Right, and 2 marriage certificates. So
Yes.
those, I guess, came in, and then they're waiting for the archivist to take a look and page through it himself and move it downstairs, and
Yeah, that Bible looked like it had actual holy power. Like you could hold it up and lasers would shoot out or something.
Amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I just about as much as you guys know at this point, because I walked in right before you got here and I saw it. I was like, Laura, our executive director, what's that? She goes, oh, that was just given to us by a member of the public, and it's a Bible, and there's these 2 marriage certificates, and one's from 1890s and one's from 1860s, and the Bible is this huge Bible, as you saw, with the clasp on it. And so that's kind of why, I'm a volunteer. I'm the president of the organization, but it's a nonprofit, and I'm a volunteer. So, why would you do this stuff? Those moments.
Right.
Just to see those things and get to be one of the first people to lay eyes on it. It's just, it's why you want to serve the community, because the rewards like that are just really great.
Absolutely. And how frequently would you say that you receive donations? Maybe not necessarily the aha moments, but like with what regularity are things coming in?
Yeah, every month something comes in.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Really amazing stuff, not as often, but it's pretty regular. I think people out in the community know us. We're a little separate because we're in Fort Totten, which for people who've been here for years, they know you can't cross the gate, but you can. It's no longer an army base. There is an army base that they're actually to the south of us. It's the 77th. It's a reserve unit. They're an active reserve unit, but for years you couldn't come in here. But for a few decades now you can, because it's a city park. And so, again, we're up here and we're not in the town, we're not in the village, Bell Boulevard being our main street. So, and I wish that we would have bought, there was a Bell House on the corner of 38th and Bell. There's 2 of them.
Yeah. And
they were knocked down in the 60s. I was born in the 60s, so I couldn't help.
You weren't going to be able to buy that.
But if they were around now, there's no way I'd let them get knocked down. It's been said that we were going to buy one of them or have it donated to us or something like that, and it didn't happen.
Wow.
And it's a shame, because as much as I love this building, and I feel we're blessed to have it, it's a large building and it's a lot to maintain, and that's expensive.
Yeah.
And being in the town would have been our mission would have been a little smaller maybe, but it would have had more of the public coming in and out.
Sure.
Right.
But we're here, and that's where we wound up, and it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And what's a little bit of now that we're here with the Bayside Historical Society in general, like when did it start? What's kind of the ramp up to today?
Yes, it started in 1964.
Okay.
Wow.
Right. And I always remember that because I was born in 1965, so I never, it's just a year older than me.
Right.
And it started off small. It was founded by Joseph Brown. He was a really intelligent and kind of forward-looking kind of man who had a lot of passion for the community and wanted to save. There's a cemetery. We can actually talk about this maybe in a moment.
Yeah.
And in Lawrence Cemetery in town, and he worked to get it landmarked, which is a very important thing. This building is landmarked. We're in a landmark district here, Fort Totten Historic District. But he had a really lot of, like I said, a lot of passion for it, and he set us on the right path. And then it just, over the years, it stuck around and it got a little bigger. And then when we got this building, it kind of took off even further from there.
Yeah. And this might be a little bit outside your knowledge scope, but I'm just thinking about it right now. Is landmarking as a concept, was that relatively new at that time, or had that already existed for a while?
No, it was actually relatively new, because I believe landmarking began with the destruction of Pennsylvania Station.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, and you guys saw that, it was a Beaux Arts building, beautiful.
Yeah.
And that got knocked down, and I believe it was Jackie Kennedy became, like, you know, the spokesperson for it. It was other people, but she was just this famous person who had a passion for it as well.
Yeah.
And they formed the LPC, the Landmark Preservation Commission, in the 60s. And one of the first buildings landmarked, you know, I don't know everything about it, unfortunately, but I believe Grand Central.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, interesting.
So Empire State Building and other buildings. And so the Lawrence Cemetery was landmarked in 1867.
1967.
Oh, God, sorry. 1967. and this building in 1974.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Well, I never knew that there was actually a good thing to come out of the Penn Station demolition, but apparently that's it.
Yeah.
People were heartbroken over it because it was this incredible building, and you know, I guess they're trying to bring some of that back now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I know you look at Penn Station now, though, and you're like, whoa.
There's so many contrasts in New York, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, do you interface with other historical societies around the 5 boroughs at all? Like, is there any type of networking that happens?
That's a good question. You know, occasionally with Queens Historical Society, we have, there's a guy there, Jason Antos, a really great historian. He was on our board for a while. So occasionally we do, not that much. We should do it more.
Yeah.
We really should. There's the Brooklyn Historical Society, there's the New York Historical Society. But, you know, we're this really small, local, little thing, you know?
Well, something that's interesting is you just named 3 kind of like borough level historical societies. Yes. Are there other ones, or is Bayside more uncommon than one might think?
More uncommon.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, more uncommon. I mean, I'm sure there's other ones. You know, even when you travel in New York or across the country, you find them here and there.
Yeah.
But you know, they tend to serve a very local. I mean, I remember there's one in New Paltz, because I visited this Huguenot cemetery in New Paltz.
Yeah.
Go to that if you ever get a chance.
Okay.
And so the Historic Society gave a little tour of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Which was great, because the Huguenots are this French, I believe they're from France.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Christians who came here and settled. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to create a little network, because I feel like you probably all have information that you could share with each other, or like even when something comes in, like snap a picture and send it out to your other historical society friends, like, hey, do you know what this is? Or is this...
Do you want this newspaper? 'Cause we don't need it.
Yeah, I should mention there's also one in College Point. It's called the Papenhuisen Institute. Have you visited that building?
I don't think we actually went in, but is it a big old school building?
Yeah, it's this tall, really vertical, Victorian, gorgeous building, which is also going to be knocked down.
Oh.
I mean, boy, the history. No, it was going to be.
Oh,
It's landmarked.
Okay, good.
It's landmarked.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, boy, College Point is a really interesting story. Even the story of Papenhuisen himself. I think Papenhuisen was a German immigrant who came here, and I think he made a lot of money during the Civil War. I think he had a rubber factory in Whitestone, and he made buttons, and he sold a gazillion of them to the U.S. Army. But he was an industrialist. There was other industry there too, and College Point went through a lot of changes.
Yeah.
It's too much to go into, but point being, yes, there are other. They're not really a historic society. They're actually, what do they qualify as? They're kind of like one, but they have classes there and stuff. They're pretty similar to us. I think they just actually are in a slightly different category.
Yeah. Well, I think it's relevant to this particular week's walk and to your knowledge base insofar as when we went through College Point, you know, we had never really gone through, and it's an amazing place. And if you're in the city, you should go check it out, because it's like, it feels like it preserved / forgotten, like and I think that this area out here, not preserved or forgotten, but just kind of the corners of the city and the corners of Queens have all this kind of interesting culture and something that a different flavor than what you might find in the rest of the city.
Absolutely.
And so, the I guess Bayside / Douglaston / Little Neck, is kind of your wheelhouse, and that's
right.
what we're walking through this week.
Yes.
Is Douglaston considered in any way a part of Bayside? Is there like an umbrella kind of, or is it really a separate thing entirely?
Separate thing entirely. I mean, we share a lot of, they have their quality of life and way of life is kind of similar. We're a bedroom community, to New York City, but no, they're all separate. There's Little Neck, which is on the Nassau County border. Long Island, and then there's Douglaston, and there's Bayside, and we're separated by the bay that's out here that you can see.
Oh.
Little Neck Bay. So, and Great Neck being on the other side of the bay, which is the beginning of Nassau. So no, they're separate communities, and they have separate train stations.
Yeah.
But are they similar? Yes. Yeah, very much.
Yeah. And what historically, chronologically,
Yes.
what's the order of those three?
Okay. I'd say that Bayside, Bayside didn't really come into existence as a name until probably some point in the late 1800s. Bayside was the original Gold Coast of Nassau County. There's the Gold Coast where Gatsby, and Faulkner. That's Georgia.
Yeah.
Mississippi. When Fitzgerald, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brain. When Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby, he went, there's parts of Bayside he describes as parts of Corona, and there's parts of Douglaston and Great Neck. They get renamed.
Yeah.
West Egg and other names.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's this community he's talking about. So Bayside, I mentioned Gold Coast. Bayside originally was it was either farmland or it was estates that were owned by wealthy New Yorkers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because there was nothing here at the time. So even Fort Totten itself was originally it was settled by the Wilkins family.
Yeah.
Wilkins-Dorn family. Did we talk about that last time?
Is that the family that has a
Yeah.
gravesite here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's nothing there to mark that they're buried there.
Yeah,
Wow.
we talked about it personally when we visited, and then we did kind of a facsimile presentation for people last time. But it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So the building, well, we can't see it from here, but maybe you'll get a shot of it.
Yeah.
Building right there was their home.
Yeah.
And that the Army used that. Actually, was moved. It was somewhere else on the peninsula, but that was their home, and they were wealthy New Yorkers who had an estate out here.
Yeah.
So and that's the way that Bayside was until it got settled. So your question, back to your original question, because I'm always rambling.
No.
That's okay.
Was which one's older? I believe Bayside is probably older than Douglaston.
Yeah.
And Little Neck, I don't even know the origins of Little Neck, because Little Neck is kind of, I don't know if amorphous is the right word for it, but it's just nothing against you, Little Neck. But it's less defined. Douglaston is basically this peninsula, this arrowhead-shaped peninsula. Did you say you went there yesterday?
I went to Douglas Manor and Douglaston. Yeah.
Douglas Manor. Douglas Manor is amazing, and that's more distinctive. Bayside has a real has a main street and it has the water, and so it's a little more defined. Little Neck's a little less. So I'd say that it went Bayside, then Douglaston, and then Little Neck probably was part of the same time or after Douglaston overall.
It seems like that maybe Bayside has the most commerce of the three. Like if you were to say
Yes.
A Main Street USA type thing back when it was a lot less city built up, that it seems like that has more of a walking city center or town center.
It does, because it had a main street. Bell Boulevard originally was Bell Avenue, and originally it was the country road that went through the Bell farm.
Yeah.
The Bells had their what they call their upper farm and their lower farm. The lower farm stretched to the east and went down to Little Neck Bay, and then the upper farm, which was where I live in Bell Court. So they sold off the lower farm first, and they got developed, and then the upper farm, 1904, I believe it was bought by Rickard Finley Corporation. But the point being is that they had this main street, and so it was much. It's a larger piece of land or community than Douglaston, Douglas Manor, and Little Neck anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more built up. It has a little more history that you could speak of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
They had a.
Oh, I was just going to ask, is that part of why you brought yourself to Bayside at all? Because it was a little bit more built up? And then a second question is, I'm wondering how much about Bayside you knew before you came here, or was it mostly you came here and then you got all very interested in it?
The latter.
The
yes.
latter.
Yeah, I moved here. My wife and I, we weren't married at the time. We moved here in '95, had an apartment over a house right next to Bayside High School for 4 years, and worked our tails off to save money, and then bought our house at a time when prices historically had dropped.
Nice.
So besides being married, the greatest piece of luck I ever had in my life was when we bought the house at that time.
Yeah.
Because the prices have gone through the roof now, and I feel bad for young families who would like to move here. Anyway, but we came to Bayside '95, bought our house in '99. I didn't know anything about Bayside at all. In fact, I didn't know much about Queens. I'm a Long Island kid, and although I lived around the country and I was in the military, but Queens was kind of like, it was kind of the place you drove through to get to Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And because of the nature of the Long Island Expressway or even the Grand Central, you don't see any of it, because the LAE is down, it's below grade, so you're driving and all you see is like the edges of the building, which is and who wants to live on the edge of the expressway anyway? So, and then the Grand Central, which is a beautiful road, it has all trees around it. So I didn't know anything about Queens. And that's a loss, but I made up for it. So, and then the reason I got involved in this in the first place, if that's what your question was leading to, is because we moved here. Well, we moved here because it was within this ring we drew, because we both work in Manhattan, So we said, we have to move. I wanted to move to Long Island City.
Okay.
I wanted to get a loft or something, and I'm a musician, and so I wanted to live, Williamsburg or LIC, and before Williamsburg blew up, and LIC, and my wife didn't want to have it because our family lived in Long Island at the time, and so she wanted to still be close to that. So this was a good compromise, and it had a train station. We could walk to the train station, go to work, and my commute was, before the pandemic, was 45 minutes door to door.
Wow.
That's great. That's why it's part of why you want to live here.
Yeah.
And so, it had nice old houses. That's what I'm trying to get to. So our house was built in 1920, and we would walk around this community after we got the apartment, and we're like, oh, look at that style, and look at that style, and look at that style. And then we noticed, oh, that house isn't there anymore. It got knocked down.
Oh my gosh.
And they would build this brick Monopoly hotel-shaped thing with. Meanwhile, there was this curved Dutch colonial or Tudor with all these great appointments, and then it was gone. And then they would the fence goes up, and they build this thing, and it's oversized for the property, and it drove me crazy. So, and then I met a guy named Brixton Doyle, who since moved out of here and left me to do all this stuff.
Oh.
But Brixton said, "Hey, do you know that these places are illegal?" I said, "What do you mean they're illegal?" He goes, "No, they're taking the zoning and they're twisting it." He took the time. What a bright fellow! He took the time to examine the zoning text for the single-family R2 detached homes and said, "Yeah, they're cheating," and he showed me how. And then we started on this passionate trail to reform that, and we did. We got R2 zoning changed to R2A, which removed the cheats.
Oh wow!
So, but all those things led me to like preservation, and then someone said, "You should really join the Historic Society. They could use someone like you who has this interest." And then a few years later, I became the president, and
So what's the
And here I am.
timeline?
Amazing.
We hadn't talked about the zoning before. What's the timeline of that? Like when you first started, and how long did it take to change things? Was there resistance, or were they like, "You are right," you know?
Yeah. The zoning stuff for me, because we bought the house in '99. I joined the community board 11 in 2006, I believe. So, and Bayside was rezoned 2005. So let's say 2002, 3, and 4 was when we were seeing all these changes, because that was it was going on beforehand, but it wasn't as aggressive or even egregious. So it got much more, like a lot of money was flowing in here for development, and I guess the economy changed at that time, and it was like, wow. So we were lucky that we had a city councilman at the time, Tony Avella, and he initially was against. He wouldn't take our calls, but he saw the truth in it, and he's like, wow, you guys are right, and he totally did 180 and said, we have to reform this zoning and we have to get the city to do it. And luckily the Bloomberg administration, a lot of rezonings happened all throughout Queens, not just here. They happened in Laurelton, they happened in Fresh Meadows, they happened all across our area and throughout Queens. And the Bloomberg administration was okay with that, and massive changes happened for the better.
Okay.
And some were down zoning, some were up zonings, but a better way to a better balance. Because what was happening was that the city was zoned. I don't want to bore you with this, so I'll just.
No, I love it. I love these
All right, cool.
sorts of
If
things.
people don't like it, they've already changed the channel. So
That's right. Okay. Well, if you're interested, in 1961, the city did this. I can't speak to this with great detail, but I'll give you a general picture. 1961, the city was zoned.
yeah,
The entire city got zoned. It wasn't really necessarily zoned. It had spot zoning, but they did this uniform process where the whole city was zoned. And they said, planners at the time said, in the year 2000, we anticipate that New York will have 15 to 20 million people. So they designed the zoning to accommodate 15 to 20 million people.
Wow.
Well, as we know, throughout the 60s, things got worse and worse, and then the 70s, people were leaving the city and whatnot, and I didn't live here yet. But, and that didn't happen. Right now we have 8 million and change, and it's kind of been post-COVID, or during COVID, it's been shrinking a little bit. So, but the zoning, that's the whole point. The zoning, which zoning, if you don't know, it just means, what can you build on a piece of property? The zoning was for growth.
Wow.
So that's why in these communities like ours and Flushing in particular, there were streets in Flushing where you had 2-family houses, but it was zoned for like R5 and R6, which is, so you would have a row of 2-family houses, and all of a sudden, boom, you'd have a 20-story tower that popped up. And if you live next to that pounding and drilling and building, I'm not against that kind of housing, because whatever, people have to live somewhere, but if you lived there, the way that affected you and the way that made you feel, and then you have to sell it, and does it affect the properties? Because the one thing people spend a lot of money on in their life is their house.
Right.
And some people, and I'm blessed, we have a house. Some people don't even have a house, but if you do have a house, it's the one thing that you have a mortgage, and a mortgage is you paying a heck of a lot of interest before you get to the principal, which we did. And
congratulations.
So it's a big deal. That's the point.
Yeah.
But the zoning was for growth, and we had to have some of that changed here. And it was fortunately, a lot of people in the community, Queens people are fairly civically active. They wouldn't have it. So, and we were lucky that the Bloomberg administration, which I have mixed feelings about.
Sure.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
But, they did the right thing, and I give them credit for that.
yeah.
Yeah. I was actually curious what your neighbors were feeling, because of course you're reacting to people who are buying these older houses, knocking them down, redoing them by using the loophole. Would you say that, like, did you have any personal pushback? Like, did your neighbors know that you were involved? Like, did you have anyone that was like, hey, I wanted to use that loophole and now I can't? Or was it mostly people being like,
what a great question.
Happy that you were?
No, I've never. When we had the hearings at the community board, there were guys who probably work in the building community who were kind of threatening about it. You know, like, who are you? Not just me, but other ones of us. You know, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? Well, I'm not telling you anything.
Right.
The zoning tells you what you can do.
Right.
And this is non-contextual, meaning, you know, if you can build a 10-story building next to a two-family house, which is just 2 stories high, something's wrong with that. So I'm not telling you what you can and can't do, but, you know, this isn't right. It's non-contextual, and the city needs to adapt. If there was a bunch of towers already there, then fine, build more of them.
Sure.
You know, if that's what the way the market is going or whatever. But if it's non-contextual like that, then you really owe it to the people who live there already to give them, you know, a plan for their community that's sensible. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. So it was mostly like the developers that were upset, but the community itself was
Yeah, I think the
happy.
community,
It
by
was
and
good.
large, was wanted it. You know, I can't say that I don't ever blame anybody for buying whatever house
Sure.
they can afford to live in or want to live in. You know, that's their freedom to do so, and so I don't criticize an owner, and I don't even criticize a builder, because if the law lets you do something, then you're just doing what the law allows you to do. And we have
Totally.
this thing called as of right building in New York City. There's no review. You know, if the zoning says you can build this, it doesn't. You're just allowed to build it. Other cities have a review where, like, well, yeah, you can build that there, but actually that doesn't make any sense for this community. We don't have that. This is like the
Right.
Wild West here. So yeah, I think everybody, you know, listen, it's your right to build whatever you can build there, but it's also our right to get the government and in this case the Department of City Planning and the Department of Buildings to be responsive to what we want to.
Sure, yeah.
Are there any other, either specific to Bayside or just in general to the city, you know, for those that aren't familiar with zoning, are there like some kind of hot button issues currently or some bugaboos historically that like people that would be good for people to know about?
Right. Well, currently there's a major thing going on with the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson, wants to change the way that the city is that planning happens in the city.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a heck of a long story. I don't want to bore people to tears about, but it's called Planning Together.
Okay.
And the one thing it isn't is planning together.
Okay.
It's a
gosh.
top down. It doesn't. I'm a community, like I said before. I'm on the community board. I've been on it since 2006, and you know, again, when there's community boards, every community in the city.
Sure.
You probably know. I'm sorry.
Sure.
No.
Has community boards, you know, and it's just local people who care about their community and want to have a say in what goes on. We don't. Our vote almost always is just a recommendation on anything. We don't have a league. We don't legally say what goes on anywhere. That's for the city council, the council member, and the agencies and the mayor all as well to decide. But so planning together is this current plan that Corey Johnson put together, and it would change the way that it would bring comprehensive planning.
Yeah.
Is the term to New York City. Does New York City need comprehensive planning? Definitely, because development is very often unfair to people of color and to lower socioeconomic groups, and so I totally support it. But if you're going to do anything, this is the whole problem. This is one of the larger problems we have in New York City, is that if you want to do something, you know, this is very consequential, because this planning together forces communities to accept upzonings, and we just worked for a downzoning 2005 here,
Right.
and through a 7 to 10 year period all across Queens, because we were upset with it. And now they want to come along and force upzonings on us. And you know, comprehensive planning, yes. We need to disadvantaged groups and people who have been discriminated against absolutely need better representation and a safer, better place to live. But you should include the community. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
You should include the council member. He launched his plan and he's bringing it to the city council and he didn't tell anybody about it.
Huh.
And this happens a lot. This is in my experience, is that a lot of these things, when the mayor's office, or in this case the speaker, doesn't want to deal with problems or deal with us, they'll just go ahead and do something,
right.
and then we have to play catch up to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about it. I really believe, if you watched, what was Harvey Milk, wasn't he the mayor of San Francisco?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he changed the way that their council worked, that local communities had a lot more say in it.
Yeah.
Instead of it was very top down, and I think he switched it so that the power was shared more. Now, there's a problem in that too, potentially, because you could have corruption at a local level.
Sure.
No doubt about it. My people aren't corrupt. We're in it for very pure reasons, just to
right.
keep our quality of life.
Yeah.
So, but I think we need to find a balance where it's not so top down, and that we can move forward. I mean, I have no problem with making concessions for the greater good, but we should be involved in it.
Totally.
And so planning together, right?
Yes.
So it's what people should look out for.
Yeah.
Is it something that is in this, like, already happening, or is it proposed? Like,
Proposed.
What is,
Yeah, it's a bill. It's a proposed bill that would go very, very far, changing the way that right now we have this process called the ULURP process, the Universal Land Use RP, and so
review process.
Review process. That's the man. So if you want to do something that falls under the ULURP process, which is this public review, then what happens is that change, say you want to change zoning for an area, that's just one example. Well, then it goes to the community board, which reviews it and makes a recommendation that we vote and make a recommendation, non-binding, that the borough president sees. And then once the borough president sees it, then it goes to the city council and the mayor, and it has to go through this process. That's important. Even though our vote, like I said to you, that the community board, it's not binding, but at least we get to review it and we get to speak about it, and we're an influence.
Right.
But when you go the other way around and take out the ULURP process, then, so there's much more details to the bill. If anybody wants to read about it, you can read about it.
Yeah.
Right now it's in committee, and Corey Johnson, funny enough, who's an outgoing, he's a lame duck. I'm not really sure why you would do something so significant during a pandemic. It's beyond words. It makes me think that, without being overly suspicious, that he has other things in mind, and he just figures, I'll just do this while I still can. And Corey, if you're listening, you should really involve the community in something so major.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe we'll send him this segment. We've seen the New York City community come together to call on their council members, even just this year with the 50A or 501A repeal that happened over the summer. That was because of people talking about it in forums like this and then spreading the word.
Yeah.
And then everybody called their council member. So maybe we've got to get on this one now as a New York City community.
Yeah.
Again, so if I could put just one more note on it, is that the goal of it, again, I'm not against the goal of it, but it's a pretty sneaky way to do something so major. You should really involve more people in the process of it. So.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm interested to learn more about it.
Same.
Yeah. I want to switch gears for a second. We have been talking to all sorts of different people this year, and we've gone through all different professions. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke to an accountant. Last week, we spoke to a hip-hop artist. This week, we're speaking to you, and each time we speak to these people, we like to ask about what COVID has done to their day-to-day life. And so you're in video production.
Yes.
And we just wanted to, speak a little bit about that profession and how it may have changed during this past year plus.
catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that my wife has a job in healthcare,
Yeah.
which has been affected by COVID certainly, but it
Right.
hasn't made it less. There's plenty of work in healthcare. So, and we're a little older, so we're not. If I had bought the house last year,
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
it would be in foreclosure right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't worked since April.
Wow.
It's been really, last April. So it's been really tough. I lost my mom also to COVID during that period.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it was a really tough year. Been on unemployment, but thank God it's there.
Yeah.
I really it's so happy that it's there. And so many people have it worse than I do. So I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. But it's if anything, besides the financial issues, which really aren't so bad for us personally, but it's just that not working. I love my job.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everybody loves their job. You like your job. You like your job. I love my job too. I've traveled. I've been to 4 Super Bowls. I've been to Madagascar. I've been to all these different countries across Australia a few times, across the world. Meeting new people, interviewing them. I do the sound part of it. I put these
Right.
things on. Things
Hope we
on.
can live up to it.
Well, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
The technology is so good now that really my job is. But but carrying.
Cut that part out.
cut that out. No, carrying equipment, going through airports. It's great. I've been lucky enough to work in audio since I was in my early 20s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I went to school for English. I was going to be an English teacher. I wanted to be an English professor. And then my band at the time got signed to a really small label. We went on tour, put out an EP. And then I came back and I was like, am I going to go to grad school, or am I going to continue to record music? Because I was always the guy who had the 4-track and recorded my band, my friend's band, the techie kind of guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I love technology, and so been lucky in that fact. The last year it's been rough with COVID, of course.
Yeah.
And so, did you work for a production company, or were you freelancing for various productions? Like, what was the gig situation like exactly?
Yeah, I'm a freelance.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was steady enough that I should say years, maybe over the last 10 years prior, maybe less than 10, maybe 8 years prior, I worked a lot less because we have a son, and one of us had to stay home. So, and I had the freelance job, so I took a lot less work.
Yeah.
And my business was really growing too.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I still manage to work. And one of the people I work for lives right here in Bayside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he'll come pick me up in the morning, and we'll go to work. So, or I'll take the train, whatever it is. But no, so I continued to work, and hopefully it all comes back. I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard about anything starting to come back? I know some people that work in like the wardrobe prop area of film shoots, and
Right.
I've heard they're starting to try and figure it out, but it sounds kind of dicey.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based on how close people are to one another.
Right.
I saw some productions being done in the city. I saw some in LA. So yeah, listen, I have no doubt it's going to come back. The media still goes on, and programs are still being shot, but it just outside of those, I think, of those shows basically. Plus, you can also shoot a show in another country or another state that's more permissive. I'm just a New York guy, so whatever the New York rules are on COVID, from the mayor to the governor, really the governor, then I'm gonna have to follow them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then, so as you're freelance, there obviously relationships is the big way that you get work. So
definitely.
How do you maintain those in this time? I mean, I could imagine, we happen to be doing something that is very particular. So we talked to you about doing an interview, and there's no money exchange. We're just, so it's a fun thing. But, I would imagine potentially if I were a freelancer and I'm wanting for jobs, that there would be this, do I reach out? Am I bothering you? What's my relationship with this person? For some people, okay, we're very familiar long term. I wouldn't mind reaching out. But other people, I might be a little hesitant. Like, how does that work for you?
Right. Yeah, I maintain my relationships with people that I work with. I've done it for a while, so I became friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And once they come back, then we'll come back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, for all of us. I'm not really overly worried about it because we're all in the same boat.
Right.
Yes, of course.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And you know they need people to work, and I need them to hire me. So
Right. Yeah, it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, and I'm also a musician too, which I do on the side, just mostly for fun, sometimes for pay, and but I'm in a cover band that plays a bunch, and I write songs too. I don't perform those. I used to years ago.
Yeah.
But so that also got affected, you know, because
Yeah.
bars are closed and even outdoor shows were closed. So, and the cover band I played in plays like 30 to 40 shows a year. We played a lot of shows, especially over the summer, and all gone.
Right. Do you cover? Go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, are you still able to get together and practice a bit now?
No, we don't even practice, but we were together for quite a long time, so we'll just get back and do it.
It'll
Yeah, these are songs I've been hearing, since this classic rock stuff. Not stuff that I'm not necessarily. I'm more of an '80s guy, alternative '80s, '90s music kind of person. But and this is like '70s and '60s, which I love too. I don't want to put it down.
Yeah.
But it's like I've been hearing this stuff since I was a kid.
Right.
So
it'll just
come right back.
It comes right back.
Yeah.
What's your instrument?
I play guitar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it'll just come through your fingers.
It just comes. I mean, I play every day. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if I don't play guitar on a day. I remember when I was in the Air Force, you go to basic training, and so that was 8 weeks, and then they had the last week we were able to go to the rec center, and I hadn't played guitar at that point almost 2 months.
Oh wow.
And I picked it up, and I was like, oh, it must be lefty.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a righty. I said, it must be a lefty because it feels so weird. It's just that I hadn't played it in 2 months.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Did it come back quickly though?
No,
or-
it came
yeah,
back.
It
was
just like
but I
felt.
was just like, oh, I was shocked by it, So that's how, that's why I play every day, and it's it gives me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
Totally. And so 30 to 40 shows when the cover band is really going. Are they in Queens? Are they all over the 5 boroughs? Are you going to the Jersey Shore? Like, what's the range?
Yeah, it's basically a North Shore, like like College Point, this part of Queens, Bayside, out to say Oyster Bay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really local.
Yeah, somehow
Nice.
we fell into that, and we play all the bars and
That's just-
sometimes private shows, parties and stuff in
Nice.
between, and it's a blast. I love
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say it's gotta be a lot of fun.
It sounds
It's a
so
ton of
fun.
fun.
Yeah.
It's especially, we set up our own equipment, so there's no roadies. So
Right.
Right.
so when you first get there and you're bringing all the stuff out of the van, I got to go from my house to the van to the location, take it all out, set it up, get sound check. Everybody's rushing along, grab a beer, and then you play. All that stuff is work, but when you play, and if you're connecting,
Right.
it changes everything, because there really is, and I'm sure people much more successful in the music industry than I am will tell you that when you play a show and the audience is reacting and they're with you on it, it makes this feedback loop.
Right.
Oh,
And
so cool.
you could cut it with a knife, man. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's really so cool, because if they're enjoying themselves and they're singing and they're dancing and they want to hear more music, and then you feel that, and your performance just gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just goes on this loop, and so that's what I miss the most.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that energy exchange is what I think we're all missing out on that to some
Yeah.
degree. It's like being able to just be casually like enjoying yourselves in whatever your medium is.
Totally.
Yeah, I look forward to when we can come see you.
Oh, yeah.
When this is all over,
What's
we
the
can
name of the-
actually
the
come
act?
out.
You're not going to walk there, are you?
Maybe.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be really great.
What's the name of the group?
It's called, I didn't name it. It's called Chicken Head. Because amplifier, we're vintage people. And vintage amplifiers have these knobs called chicken head knobs.
Oh.
They're these like pointers. You've probably seen them.
Yeah.
So that's called the chicken head knob. So the bass player Eddie decided to call it chicken head, and we all just went with it.
That's
Nice.
great.
And so it works out.
That's great. And did you meet once you moved to Bayside? Have you known them longer? Like, how is it that?
Oh yeah. No, I know them because my friend Al Semerjian, who's a teacher and a poet and a musician, songwriter, he check out his website, alansemerjian.com. I recorded his band Surreal. They were called Surreal years ago, and I'm friends with Al. And Al knew Eddie, who I mentioned before, the bass player, who lives out in Seacliff. And so Eddie lives on the beach in Seacliff. You think by saying he lives on the beach, you think he's this incredibly wealthy man, but he's not. He's a regular working guy like me, and he's just wealthy in his life. But no, he bought his house at the same time, same year, same month that I did here.
Nice.
The market had gone down,
Nice.
and he and I didn't know him at the time, and he bought his house, I bought my house, and then I met him a few years later, I suppose, because every 4th of July he has a party at his house, and people come to Seacliff to watch the fireworks
Oh,
Yeah.
to the beach
wow.
there.
Yeah.
So they come by, and then there's a band playing. So I went there one time, and then we hit it off, and then the guitar player who was in the band left, and then they're like, "Paul, you want to join?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course."
That's awesome.
So that's how I made that connection.
Yeah.
And that serendipitous thing is what makes life kind of cool and
Yeah.
Totally.
interesting, you know?
Absolutely.
I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you've given us so much awesome content to review. We gotta check out Chicken Head. We gotta check out the art show from the Bayside Historical
please
Society, and the zoning stuff is actually, you're being very conservative when you say don't want to bore people, but I think it's really important, and I think it's really interesting too. When you think about what it means to be a part of a community,
Yes.
and how we don't just get from historical buildings to skyscrapers and anything in between by accident. These
Right.
things all happen,
Absolutely.
and if you really care about where you live, you should pay attention.
Yeah, and I
You
think
should.
people love to have
Well said.
opinions about things. Like, we love to look at a building and say that's ugly, and look at another building and say that's nice, and why do all these people live here, whatever. And this is like, you can actually think about it ahead of time before it happens, and maybe help to make things the way that you want it to
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell my son that everything comes down to the law. One, so zoning is law of sorts, because it said what you can and can't do.
Sure.
And that saying of follow the money. It's those two things. The stuff that we do as activists, we don't get paid for. Mm-hmm. I don't earn anything from it other than satisfaction that I'm helping the community and what the community would like to have. And again, Northeast Queens, where we live, College Point, it's a funny place. I'm glad you went to visit. Whitestone, Douglaston, Little Neck, and we like to say any of the parts of Queens that are east of the Van Wyck Expressway.
Right.
We have something in common, and I like it here. I didn't come from here. I moved here in the late '90s and bought a house, and I came really. I love the place. I'm not leaving. I'm not. Everybody. It's snowing out. We talked about snow before.
Yeah.
It's like everybody wants to move to Florida at my age.
Yeah.
I got nothing against Florida,
Yeah.
but there's no way I'm moving to Florida.
That's good.
Yeah.
No way I'm moving to Florida. I'd rather live in Brooklyn.
Sure.
I'd rather get more urban, not here, but there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or stay here. And I'm sure that we're going to stay here for the rest of our time, because I got a 25-minute commute on the train. I could walk to the train in 7 minutes. I'm in Manhattan in 25 minutes. I can drive to Brooklyn without traffic in 20 minutes. To Williamsburg, go see
Yeah.
a show.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what makes me high in life. So,
Yeah.
why the heck would I leave here? Why did I go to Florida where it's hot as heck all summer? The humidity is boundless. You got to stay inside the whole time.
Yeah.
So you got to shovel. Shoveling is good.
So what?
that's right.
Exactly,
What the
it's
heck,
good
you
for
know?
you.
I like digging around my car. I like making the paths for when my son was little for him to run through.
Totally.
Come on.
Yeah. And what's the
I
worst?
love New York.
Yes.
Same.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks.
It's really
you.
cool. It's when Laura, our executive director, told me about it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. They walk everywhere. Wow, how cool is that? How good is that for the planet? And what a great concept. I wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm very proud of you.
Cool.
Okay, well, that was our talk with Paul. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Next week, we're heading back into the city. We're going to be in Manhattan for a full month doing themed walks there, and we are looking forward to it.
That's right. March is Manhattan Month, our last month in Manhattan. So we'll hope you will join us next month as we do various themes again. If you like what you're listening to, what you're watching, please give a like and subscribe. The like helps us share it around the YouTubes. The subscribe lets you know when more stuff's coming out. And thanks so much, as always, for folks that have stuck around with us, and we really appreciate the support.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Take care
Bye.
for now. Bye.